And that is that. The match has finished. Leeds United 1, West Ham United 2. The Hammers rise to 5th in the Premier League once again. Leeds scored the opening goal of the game, a retaken penalty after Fabianski was deemed to have encroached coming off his line. And then the Hammers levelled on 24 minutes, a Jared Bowen corner. And Thomas Souček beating Dallas to the ball and nodding the ball just over the line before it was hooked away. The winning goal coming 10 minutes from the end of time. An Aaron Cresswell free kick delivered to the far post where Angelo Ogbonna, who's receiving all the plaudits from his teammates right now, rose highest to nod into the corner. It's another away win for the Hammers, Gnome, and just about deserved it, haven't we, tonight?
I think so. I think we were the better side. I think I'm slightly disappointed with Leeds, I'll be honest. I haven't watched much of them this season. So I've not sort of made a point of watching their live games, but I just had it in my head that they were a bit better than what I've seen. And not complaining, mind, but I've just thought if there is a wider grin than Ogbonna's there a second ago in the country at the moment, I'd be amazed to see it. But listen, an away win is not to be sniffed at. Those of us who go back a long way will be relishing this, because the away win at Leeds is even, I know times have changed, they're not what they were, but just the idea of getting an away win at Leeds is always nice to get. So I'll have that. That's a good performance. I think we were worth the 3 points, and well done.
Great stuff. And Rio, Leeds United 1, West Ham United 2. West Ham 20 points on the table, on the board after just 12 games. We're halfway to survival already, and we're still not at Christmas. Amazing stuff. Scenes.
Yeah, I think that's our joint quickest amount of games we've got to reach that 20-point margin.
Is that right?
We're halfway to safety, as you say. And also, Gnome just said it, it's a very rare away win at Leeds. I mean, the last time was when Nigel Winterburn scored in 2000. Before that, at Ellen Road, you've got to look back to, I think it's 1978.
Wow.
So that is a very rare occurrence. That was
my
very good performance.
Birthday, I think. That one. I think Alvin Martin was on the goal scoring sheet that day, if I remember rightly. I may be going a bit loose.
Sorry, just a point of order. You mean the great Alvin Martin, don't you?
Yes.
Thank you.
I thought that went without saying, Pinky, but
no. It's. I'm thinking of starting one of those petitions that you can do at Parliament, where if you get 100,000 signatures, that they can actually force a legislative change. And I actually want it to be a law that whenever you utter the words Alvin Martin, they must be prefixed with the words the great.
I'm sure they'll be grateful in Parliament. I mean, it's not like they've got anything else to do at the moment, is it?
Pinky, another priceless win, as we've said already, as Rio and Gnome have said, for the Hammers, an away win. First win at Ellen Road for 20 years since the great Nigel Winterburn scored the winning goal. Well deserved, really, overall.
Yeah, I think so. And, a point on the road is never a bad result. A win on the road is always a fabulous result, regardless of opposition. Yeah. In truth, I don't think Leeds United were at their best tonight, but let's give ourselves some credit there. I think, for my money tonight, we had the two standout players on the field in Declan Rice and Ben Rama. They were the two that caught the eye. I'm not totally sold on Ben Rama for reasons I previously explained, but he looked attractive tonight, and you can see that actually picking up on Gordon's point, he'll give us a certain point of difference, perhaps, against some opponents. But tonight, an away win at Leeds, you would take it all day long, because how often do we criticise our lads for not being able to put away the promoted teams? Normally who we lose to each season, we drop points against the teams that have come up. And yet there we are tonight. We've gone away to Elland Road, and we haven't exactly put them to the sword, but we've played, I think, reasonably well within us in a slightly weakened team, because I think any team we put out without Antonio is going to be a bit weakened. And we've come away with 3 points and an improved goal difference. I mean, what more do we want?
Interesting. I mean, you know, we said we weren't perhaps playing at our best tonight, but you know, we've gone away from home and we've created 19 shots at goal. I mean, that's a pretty rare thing. Eight shots on target. But I mean, I think you made the point, Pinky, during the second half. You said that some of it was, you know, it's attritional, I think was the description you used, and that was certainly the case at times. But you know, I mean, that's the sign of a good side. I mean, I think we sort of expected a game tonight, didn't we? We thought there would be chances, and there's, looking at the stats, 32 shots between the two teams, 13 for Leeds, 19 for West Ham. But yeah, I mean, on that point, that's a pretty decent statistic, isn't it, to go away from home and create that many chances?
It is, but I would temper it with the comment I made, in the first half. I'm not sure that what we're watching is truly good football. I think the fact that the supporters aren't in the stadiums is having a very significant impact on the intensity of the games, and I think just the amount of space that players are having in match after match, they're nice to watch on TV and all the rest of it, but let's not kid ourselves. This is not the normal standard of football that you would get in front of a proper stadium audience. And, it's nice to look at on telly, but don't be fooled. Don't be fooled.
Okay. Good stuff, Pinky. I don't know if you can perhaps just check the XG stats for the game out if you get the opportunity. We will, of course, ask you to have a look at the Leeds Forum, which will be quite delightful.
Some refreshment first. I will be back.
Well, let's get our priorities right, of course. We will, of course, be going to.
Got to adjust his girdle.
We're going to be looking at. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at the XG stats. So we'll be looking at the Leeds United reaction from their fan base. We'll be looking at the reaction of the West Ham fans on our YouTube live stream. Let us know what you think of the game, who you thought was, West Ham's outstanding players on the evening, and of course, Rio will be taking a look at the KUMB Forum match thread in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to come to the panel for your man of the match nominations. One or two real outstanding candidates out there tonight. Gnome, I'll start with you. Who's your top man tonight for the Hammers?
Sorry, did you say me?
Yes, please. Yeah. No.
Yes, Pinky's mentioned Declan. He's mentioned Ben Rama, both of whom caught the eye. Ben Rama particularly when he was running at the place. But I think I'm actually going to plump for Ogbonna, because when Leeds were getting crosses in left, right, and centre, he was clearing them out. And the goal really just was sort of cherry on the top there, I think. I think Ogbonna I'll give it to. Okay,
good stuff. Well, it's nice to have a slightly, and he's certainly been playing really well this season, of course, hasn't he? Good to see him crop up with the winning goal there. Rio, what about you, buddy?
For me, I'm going to point out a couple of different players as well. I thought Kofel and Creswell both contributed significantly as well, Thought Kofel was very underrated. He got forward well, defended well. Creswell, despite his ice skates, managed to put in some quality delivery, which obviously led to the winner. But for a man of his age and his injury record, which, as we've said time and time again, has affected him, he was up and down that pitch against a really fit Leeds team.
Yeah.
And he could have started in there. He did incredibly well. But I'm going to give it to Ben Rama because, as Pinky said, he's one of those players who's going to make a lot of West Ham fans very happy. He loves having the ball. He loves running at players. He's going to excite people. And for a first start today, he did enough there to convince me that when we can get into stadiums, I'm going to be out of my seat 99% of the time as soon as he gets the ball.
And not just for one of those middle-age trips to the toilet you need quite regularly, I guess. So, but no, I think I'd go along with that. I think Ben Rama made things happen tonight. He excited us watching the game. I think there was quite a few players who had a decent input. Bowen, industrious, not particularly spectacular, but worked really hard. This is probably going to be quite a contentious one, but I thought Haller had a decent second half. Really struggled in the first half, and he had those two. Let's not forget, he could have scored twice within the first 10 minutes of the second half. The two headers tipped over the bar within the space of about 60 seconds. The overhead effort that was also goal bound. I mean, theoretically, he could have had a hat trick there in the second half. So I thought that was a really, really strong performance from our much maligned striker there after the break. But I think it's difficult to look any further than Ben Rama. Purely because he was the one who, he looked like making things happen, and some lovely footwork, really. And we're West Ham supporters. That's what we want to see. You want to see players who can do things on the ball, excite the fans, and get the crowd going. So yeah, I'd go with you, Rio. I think just about, tipping it would be Ben Rama, but I think I'd give Haller a runners-up man of the match award for that second half alone. Pinky, you mentioned Declan Rice and Ben Rama. Who would you pick out of the two? Or someone else, maybe.
I'm determined not to give it to Ben Rama because I'm down on him. But if I was there tonight, and I saw a player who wanted to get on the ball, who wanted to take players on, who showed a bit of fancy footwork, I'd be cheering him all night long. Be no doubt about that.
Yeah.
My reservations are, he probably wants to be on the ball a bit too much, dare I say it, and sometimes the simple pass to a teammate is what's required. But he played well tonight. But for me tonight, Leeds United, they had their star player, Phillips. I don't think he's in Declan Rice's class, if I'm being honest. I think Rice absolutely showed he was the much better player on the night. And I'm not saying Phillips played particularly badly, but it is astonishing to see Declan Rice at 21 is now looking a really good footballer. Okay, and we all know where it's going to end up. But I thought Rice was good tonight. Ultimately, I'd probably give it to Rice because I'm a bit more defensive orientated than some of the lads. I hear what Gordon's saying about Ogbonna. Balbrainer was almost in with the shout for it for a while tonight.
Could have had two goals, of course, as we mentioned. Yeah, in the second half too.
And again, there's some alarm bells ringing in my head when I said, near 5 minutes from time.
Yeah.
We're winning 2-1, and both our centre backs are attacking. I'm thinking, was this like my own personal episode of Ashes to Ashes? And I've gone back to 1974, and I'm actually watching the Dutch team. Kind of like, so I don't know. And it all adds up to me, this thing where I'm saying that the standard of football actually isn't that great. It's entertaining, it's oohs and ahs and what have you. But I hope when people are watching this at home, they know what they're watching and they're not watching genuinely competitive games at the moment.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about it before. I don't like using the word brand and things like that because it's all sort of a bit Brady-esque. But the Premier League, in forcing these games to go ahead, they're actually damaging their brand, in my opinion, because the standard is not where it should be. And that's not the players, it's the environment in which they're playing. And I can see people turning off in droves unless they're careful, because this isn't real. This isn't real football. It really isn't.
But it seems to be making. I mean, we saw it at the end of last season, didn't we? That it seems to be making for a much more level playing field in a sense. We've seen some crazy games so far. I mean, you will all. I think we always look back to the Villa and Liverpool game, but it does make you wonder that would West Ham be in this position if the stadiums were full, if they were playing in front of an expectant home crowd that wouldn't be as forgiving as perhaps an empty stadium is, and one or two other Southampton as well doing really well.
That's where I'm coming from, because the difference a split second is making between a player being put under pressure and not quite having the technical ability to bring the ball under immediate control, and having, because of everyone's just playing at 99.5% rather than 100%, suddenly they've got that extra fraction of a second. And don't get me wrong, they're all good players, but the players who aren't as good as the very best are looking better than what they really are, because they're not being put under pressure to the same extent. And I think we're seeing lots and lots of goals this season because of that fact. And I just wonder, when the supporters come back in, I don't think it's because we expect too much. I just think that the application from every single player goes up fractionally, and that's the difference.
Very good point, actually. I think there, one place we're not seeing lots of goals, of course, so far this season, is in West Ham's net, because we've been very strong at the back. I think only Tottenham and Chelsea have conceded fewer goals. Man City as well have conceded fewer goals than the Hammers so far this season. So that's it's a strange one. I think you're absolutely right, Pink. I think it's made for some very, very strange results, but I'm kind of quite enjoying it this season. The fact that the Arsenal are struggling, and Man City and Man United are it's only 7th and 8th, whereas usually they'd be sort of 3rd or 4th guaranteed, and it certainly seems to be opening the whole thing up a little bit. So we'll see what happens as it goes on. Man in the Match Awards, Gnome going for.
I'm just going to go to Bielsa, lads.
Okay, good stuff. We'll come back to that in a minute, Gnome. Thank you. Gnome going for Ogbonna. Pinky going for Declan Rice, myself and Rio going for Ben Rama. Lots of love on the YouTube chat for Ogbonna. Connor Green, Steve Palmer, Hobo, David May, all felt that Ogbonna was top man. Eamon Green as well. And Steve Palmer thought Souček had a really good game tonight. Jiri Kramaric, also a fan of Souček's performance tonight. And Dino Salmi saying that he told us Ben Rama was something special, a little bit of X factor. I think that was certainly the case tonight. Miklet also saying Ben Rama was good tonight. Eamon Green, going with Pinky's choice. Damon Rice saying he's a class act. He's a baller as well. Miklet, so yeah, man of the match, Rice or Ben Rama. Ian Hudson saying Ben Rama justified his selection tonight. But yeah, good stuff. Thank you for all your nominations, of course, for Man of the Match Awards and your company tonight. We're going to be looking at Bielsa's interview very soon. Gnome's keeping a beady eye on that one for us. Before we do that, let's have a quick look at the two teams' forums just to see what the fans are saying after the game. We'll start with West Ham first. We'll start with the Happy Hammers, Rio, and see what the KUMB.com match thread participants are saying about West Ham's latest away win.
Yeah, everyone's obviously absolutely jubilant. Craig 2609 has put, fantastic win. Generally never thought we were in trouble. Defensively, I thought we looked great. Shout out to Kufel, was great tracking back his runners, particularly in the first half. Huge credit to Moisey, tactically spot on against a very fat looking Leeds side. Palermo got a little justified criticism, but a big man out there does present the opposition problems. Saeed was man of the match for me, always positive. Going to make things happen. We'll be interested to see how his end product develops. Neathine has put, I'm loving this new West Ham, whereby effort is the #1 priority. Moyes and his team have raised our fitness levels to standards unheard of. Ben Rama, man of the match for me. A couple more games under his belt and he's going to be a star player for us. Unfortunately, Haller gets the minge of the match. Luckily, it was only one time he go the ball way that led to a goal for them. Better sides would have punished us. But can't fault any of the players, even the ones who made a few mistakes. They left everything out there on the pitch tonight against a very fit Leeds team. Just another one here is Junko Partner. Cracking game, high quality entertainment. Technically superb in the second half, end up deserved winners. Hilaire will have better nights, but he was decent enough. Chin up, big man. There's a couple of other comments. The likes of Funky Chicken. It's put a rather lengthy essay commenting on the game, which is probably best not read out on air by me because A, my throat's going, and B, it would take so bloody long I'd lose the viewers. But yeah, everyone's absolutely ecstatic and rightly so.
Wonderful. Thank you for that summary, Rio. Pinky, I'm guessing the view on the Leeds Forum isn't quite as happy as the ones the comments Rio's just read out.
I think we're approaching the point of the season where the Marcelo Bielsa loving might just be starting to fade. I think he's now gone from the one in the nightclub that looked absolutely gorgeous after a double gallon of Stella to, in the cold light of day, they're having a few doubts. I think it's fair to say they are horrified at their ability to defend corner kicks. I mean, to a man on marching on together, and Bielsa's copping a bit of flack. They're pointing out, their squad is wafer thin. They haven't got the depth, and you understand that with a promoted team. And all throughout this, it is just gloom and doom, which is lovely to see. To be fair, I think you'll look forward to do the opposition view this week. It's just. It really is. They're in need of a reality check reading this, because I'll read a couple of them out here now in terms of what's going on. If Pochettino has watched this, then no way he'd be picking the phone up. Delusional, I think that covers that. Because somehow I don't think Pochettino is hanging around for the Leeds United job. Call it a stab in the dark. Next one from White Rose, who's a reserve player according to their sort of descriptions. The whole team has been crap tonight. A good start to the season is but a memory now. Sit and miss, but let's be honest, we have been pants since the international break, and that's one of their moderators, Irish Ian. I fully agree with you, Irish Ian. I think you have been pants since the international break. I mean, this is going to be comedy gold for you this week, but
good.
I mean, generally speaking, what I'm reading there are the comments of supporters who are supporting the team that have come up from the Championship and are finding out that after the initial burst of enthusiasm, what a tough slog the Premier League is. Because if you can get your best 11 on the field every single week, that is half the battle. And perhaps that is the secret of what David Moyes has done since Project Restart. More often than not, Antonio accepted, he's got our best 11 players on the field week in, week out. And it makes a difference. And Leeds United there tonight, their supporters are basically saying it's bare bones. And they're now essentially realising their bottom 6-7 material.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, only one win in 6 for Villa for Leeds since they won 3-0 at Aston Villa at the end of October. Beaten 4-1 at home by Leicester, beaten 4-1 at Crystal Palace, held Arsenal to a goalless draw, and managed that very good win at Everton. Very unusual 1-0 win for Leeds, but beaten at Chelsea last week 3-1 and beaten by West Ham tonight. So certainly heading the wrong way. I just wonder, Pinky.
2 words for Leeds United supporters. Never mind Pochettino. Sam Allardyce. Okay.
Well, who knows?
And dare I say it, they'll go from the all-out attack of Marcelo Bielsa to maybe Angus Kinnear having to pick the phone up and say, Mr. Allardyce, is there any chance? Because it may come down to that.
Well, we shall see. Of course, Big Sam out of work for the last couple of years and yearning, we understand, for an opportunity to come back into the game. But it makes you wonder. I just wonder, Pink, if there's any calls for Bielsa's resignation or, calling for him to be sacked, as is often the case when a team's beaten by West Ham.
They're not quite brave enough. No one on that particular website is quite brave enough to say it yet.
Right.
And I think that's fair enough because, I was praising him at the start of, as a manager that wants to win games. And if I was a Leeds United supporter, I'd say, well, this is what I want to watch. But of course, the other side of the coin is the Allardyce doctrine, which was always, what supporters like to watch is winning games. And somewhere between the two lies the truth. But given the fact they've been out of the Premier League for 20 years, I'm not so sure that the owners of Leeds United are going to run the risk of sliding into the Championship just so they can be nice to Marcelo Bielsa.
Yeah.
And I might be going down to Paddy Powell's or whatever your investment advisor is, and just saying, do you know what? Bielsa could be under real pressure here.
Well, it's one we'll certainly watch with interest as the weeks and months go on. Of course, the man we are talking about, Marcelo Bielsa, has just been talking to Sky Sports by his interpreter. Gnome has been keeping an eye.
Come back to me because we've got David Moyes now.
Well, there you go. We are live, and these things happen. We've left it too late, and Moisey, the Moyster, is coming up now. So we'll go to Gnome for a double review in just a few minutes. Rio, what do you make of Bielsa at Leeds? I mean, you know, they seem to love him there, don't they? But do they love their Premier League status more?
They love him, and rightly so. He's lauded throughout the world. Guardiola says he's a massive fan. He was very much inspired by him. What he tries to do, though, is going to backfire because of the truncated season from last year and this one. We're playing basically a year and a half's football in the space of 12 months, really. And the way he sets his teams up to play, it's so high intensity, high press. It's all about the fitness, and they haven't got the biggest squad, you know. We think we've got problems. They're not far behind us in terms of strength and depth. They're getting those players that put in those kind of performances week in, week out in the truncated, as I said, like you're playing 18 months football in the space of virtually 12.
Yeah.
Their fitness level's going to suffer. It's going to be hard work. They started off like a house on fire, rightly so. But we've seen the last few weeks, it's catching up with them. Tonight, it sounds weird, but we looked the fitter side at the end. Now, that Leeds high pressed, high fitness, it wasn't there to see.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I mean, I think you made
I know it's like when. Sorry, no, they had, was it 64% possession?
Yeah, yeah.
But I can't remember them keeping hold of the ball. The amount of times they just wasted the ball and gave it straight back to us, I can't remember them having any kind of sustained kind of, having a bit of passing around the back, any kind of sustained possession, which really threatened us. And they just gave it away back to us like time and time again. They were so sloppy, it was unreal.
I think on that point, Rio, there was a stat I saw a few moments ago that I think despite all that possession, twice as much as West Ham enjoyed during the game, I think both teams had 24 or 25 touches of the ball in the opposition penalty area. So absolutely backing up what you're saying there about the fact that for all the possession they had, they essentially wasted it. Yeah,
no, there was so many. I can count about 3 or 4 occasions where the keeper just kicked the ball straight into our midfield and we just picked up and run with it, which is unlike us to get. We struggled with the second ball, didn't I, getting the first ball, not many times.
Yeah.
But they were just so sloppy. They just gave it away at will at times. And yeah, I think the fitness levels is going to really take its toll, particularly in the new year. I mean, it's starting to show signs of cracking now. Another thing I noticed is that at one stage early in the second half, that the Leeds kind of options were so poor that I saw Bielsa squat down, and when he didn't even have a bucket underneath him. So where's the bucket gone? No, yeah.
Well, one more thing, Rio, before we go over to Gnome for the two managers' post-match interviews. What do you make of this policy of Bielsa's of informing the media of his lineups sort of 48 hours before the match? It's all quite unprecedented, isn't it, really?
No, I mean, you got to take everything what he does with a pinch of salt. I mean, it's another reason I like him. He's a wily old fox, isn't he? And he likes to play mind games. And we saw last year, we mentioned it last week, didn't we? With the shenanigans with Frank Lampard and the Spygate kind of saga.
Yeah.
And I think it's just an extension of that. It's a different tactic for him, isn't it? instead of saying, "Oh, yeah, we find everybody week in, week out. What's the problem?" He's now taken another angle. We're going to name our teams 2 days before, play the morning games that way.
Yeah, I think that the question with that is that, some Leeds fans have looked at that and wondered whether or not that's the right path to take. They're sort of saying that you're giving your opponents an extra opportunity to prepare. I just wonder if that, that might come back and backfire for him and come back and kick him in the backside a little bit.
But again, you look at his squad and it's not massive, is it? So it's very much like us. Our first 11 pretty much writes itself. You know he's going to turn up and be playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take the way that Leeds have started the season, like obviously they've tailed off in the last few weeks. Their first 11 virtually writes itself anyway. So
do you think if they had a bigger squad to choose from, that he might not play that particular card, might sort of play it differently?
Yeah, he'll be trying everything in the book. Like I said, I think it's just a different angle to work on at the moment.
Okay.
Once he thinks there's something different, he'll go that route.
Well, whatever it was, it certainly played into West Ham's hands tonight. The Hammers coming away with a vital 3 points, rising to 5th in the Premier League table. The managers have spoken. Bielsa was first, followed swiftly by a delighted David Moyes. Gnome, what did the two bosses have to say? Let's start with Bielsa first, as he was out for speaking via an interpreter.
Yeah, he didn't say an awful lot, and obviously through the interpreter took a long while for him to say it. But the general gist of it was that they'd actually sort of practiced and trained exactly for the match as it happened, knowing how West Ham would play. And he said the game went in terms of tactically how he thought it would go. But at the end of the day, he said West Ham was superior, which is a fair comment. And anyway, that was really all he said. There was a few comments on, I always think we deserve more goals than we get, but it was not a particularly enlightening few minutes. David Moyes, well, you said delighted.
Sorry, no. Just quickly before we come on to David Moyes, was there any mention of the set pieces, the fact that Leeds conceded both goals from set pieces?
They talked about set pieces, and he said, yes, we concede to them, but we do work on them, and but we also work on other parts of the game as well. He didn't want to overemphasize the set piece issue. I guess what he was aiming to say was, excuse me, that if they tighten up in certain areas, then the set pieces from which teams score won't occur in the first place. So, whilst the interviewer was trying to raise that as a major point, he was trying to play it down.
Okay. Thank you. So, Davey Moyes, of course, has been on as well. No doubt, slightly happier.
Well, you described him as delighted. I don't think I've ever seen a manager look more angry at a win.
Okay.
Not because of anything, but I think he was angry at the interviewer because the interviewer's first questions were all about VAR and penalties, and he did not want to talk about that. And then in the end, he actually said, "Look, you guys are going to talk. We've come here, we've won away, and you guys are going to talk about VAR." He said, "I think you'd be better off asking me about the game," and which is a fair point. We've gone up there and won 2-1 away from home, and all they want to talk about is VAR. He didn't want to talk about it. He said maybe if some more influential managers, I don't know who that was aimed at, were to start saying things, then maybe things would improve. But I'd rather not talk about VAR. Let's talk about the game. So he was asked about Haller, and he said he thought Haller. The question was, Haller did everything but score today, and he says, "I thought Haller should have scored today." But he said, "I thought their goalkeeper had a fine game, and to keep Haller out at times." He was then asked about Ben Rama, and he said he did have he paused for thought before answering, thinking interestingly, and he said that he was pleased with a lot of what Ben Rama did, but he said there were a number of occasions where where Mr. Moyes thought that he should have played passes and played people in rather than taking shots on. He was asked about where we were at the moment and how he felt about that. He said, "Well, we're not getting carried away, and it is a good start, and I'm pleased with that. But this squad, there are times I think they can do better." So I think the tone of the questioning when it first went straight onto VAR and the penalty, I think that annoyed him, and that set the tone for the rest of the interview. I think overall he seemed quite happy with the win. You've got to be 2-1 away at Leeds.
Yeah.
And so he didn't smile even at the end of the interview. He just said thank you very much and walked off. So it was an interesting interview. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you. Well, David Moyes might not want to talk about VAR known, but we're going to talk about VAR because, and you actually raised this point during the game. Now, the penalty, let's talk about the penalty incident, which was really the only controversial, contentious issue of the evening, I think, as far as VAR was concerned. Now, we saw Fabianski pull off what was, a fairly routine save, let's be honest, from the first penalty. But I don't think any of us were really complaining when the spot kick was ordered to be retaken because he was off his line. And, he was off his line. And you know that they're pretty tight on that. But, no, you made this point, the retaken penalty that was scored by Leeds. You pointed out Patrick Bamford was at least 3 yards inside the box. I mean, you can see it. You've got the 3 6-yard lines. Yeah. And he was halfway between the first 6-yard line when the penalty was taken. And why, if the penalty was ordered to be retaken because Fabianski was off of his line, was it not ordered to be retaken again because Bamford was in the box? Now, there is a precedence for this because do you remember the opening game of last season? West Ham, Man City, Declan Rice in the penalty area, encroached, I believe is the correct term. And I think Sterling possibly missed and it was ordered to be retaken. Where's the consistency? Why are we still not getting that? And why are VAR giving one decision but not the other?
Basically, the last question, I think, covers absolutely everything in what you've just asked. The last question is, why is VAR giving one thing and not the other? The answer to that is that our referees aren't good enough. They're not consistent enough.
But this is not a referee's decision, is it? No, this is a VAR. We're talking about.
Yeah, but you've got the same guys. You've got the same group of people. One's sitting in a bunker, one's on the pitch. The fact that one is in the bunker doesn't make him any better. It means he's got more resources, which he ought to be able to use. But if he's not a good ref, he's not going to spot it. These referees are poor. The reason that they're poor is that they don't have to be any better because there's no pressure on them to improve. You can have week after week of poor performance. The assessing is generous to them to a fault. You can't tell me that honest levels of assessing would have let Mike Dean get away for the last 15 years. Oliver, we're now seeing in the same sort of thing. It's referees don't have to be any good because they're not going to get. You're not going to see Mike Dean will retire before he's demoted. Yeah.
But I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I don't buy the point that it's just because they're all incompetent. I mean, there's a deeper issue here, I think, and clearly both penalties should have been retaken. Yeah. And I just find it unfathomable. I just can't figure out why, one was given and one wasn't. I mean, and yet again, West Ham, we've had a result. We had a result against Villa with VAR, even though it was a correct decision. But we've been done again 2 weeks in a row, 2 matches in a row. Manchester United last week, VAR ruled against or didn't rule against us, but didn't rule in our favour when the ball
Yeah.
had clearly crossed the line for a throw-in. Going back to your comment about the pitch being moved a yard over, and yet again today, it should have been the penalty should have been reordered to be retaken.
Yeah, but Bamford was
This
nearly
isn't VAR
offside.
though. The problem isn't VAR, is it? It's the people who are in control of the
Exactly.
system that are at fault.
Exactly. If you've got somebody who's not very good at their job on the pitch, why should we suddenly expect them to be any better in a bunker? If they can't spot things like that when they're on the pitch 2 yards away from it, why would it occur to them? Yeah, that's what I've said all the time. It's just moving the problem, from that case, 200 miles south to a bunker in West London.
Okay.
They're not very good referees. It really is simple as that. VAR could work if you only had somebody competent working it. It would stop some of the worst excesses of certain referees going on, because it's harder to justify, because
Okay.
you've seen the replay, you've seen there's a whole string of things. I mean, it depends what the issue you're looking at. We've got diving now, happens left, right, and centre, because nobody wants to actually apply the laws of the game as they're written. We've got into this: if there's contact, it must be a penalty thing, which is totally contrary to both what's written and the spirit of the laws of the game. But because it's one of these things that's been so repeated so many times as justification for certain players, it's now referees now actually sort of take this law. They shouldn't do. That's the laws of the game. Read them. Encroachment.
Okay.
That's the laws of the game. Why don't you do it? Diving. We've seen. I mean, Connor Cody earlier on this week, was it this Monday? Was it whenever it was when Liverpool beat Wolves? Now he's dived in the box, and quite apart from the right irony of 2,000 Scousers shouting cheap when there's a dive, which is ultimate in irony there. At the end of the day, the VAR's looked at it, and they've looked at it, and they've seen his dive. So, correct decision. He's dived. Where's the yellow card? He's tried to gain advantage by simulation. Yellow card. Does he get the yellow card? No. How many times do we see players go down, the referee go and get up? Well, stop the game. Book him.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's hold that one for a moment now, because we're sort of veering off.
Sure.
The point is, and I think some people are making the point rightly in the YouTube chat, that we have won tonight and we should be celebrating that. But I just want to quickly gauge the views of the rest of the team here. Pinky Gnome says VAR could work. It's just being controlled by referees who aren't very good at their jobs. What's your view, sort of reasonably quickly, on that?
I'm not a fan of VAR generally, but if I draw a parallel with another sport, cricket, on LBW decisions, when they go to Hawkeye, whatever they call the system, they check for 3 specific things in the same sequence every time. Was the bowler's foot over the line? Did the ball pitch outside the off stump? And was the ball going to hit the stumps after its bounce? Now, there's basically what I'm saying, there's a system. If you just had that for penalties, just put one stake in the ground and say, this is what you're going to check for in Stockley Park if you are looking at a penalty kick. Firstly, you are going to check, was the keeper off his line? Yes or no? Was there encroachment into the box? Yes or no? And did the player who took the spot kick the ball twice, which we've seen on occasion? Yes or no? So even if you just said those are the 3 specific things we would check for to validate a penalty kick in the same sequence every time, you can bottom that one out in 10 seconds of just organisation.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if for a number of the things that they're reviewing, they just want to take a step back and say, what are we trying to achieve here? So if we're checking an offside, what are we doing? And even if they did something like, you have to be able to make the call within 15 seconds. Again, in cricket, the clock goes on when the captain has the choice whether he wants to use the DRS system. The clock goes on there. He's got, I think, 6 seconds or something like that to decide whether or not to do it. Why can't they time limit the amount of time they're looking at some of these decisions and saying, If it's clear and obvious, you should be able to see it straight away.
Yeah.
If you're having to get a slide rule and protractor out, it isn't clear, it isn't obvious. Go with the ref's decision and get on with the game.
So you pretty much, I mean, that essentially you're advocating the same system there that is used in cricket, unless it's a very obvious error, they go with the initial decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I totally agree for what it's worth. I absolutely agree. Rio, quickly, sorry, coming to you last on this issue, but yeah, VAR, clearly, you know, both penalties should have been retaken. Only one was. Where do we go from here? And you know, what's the solution?
Well, for me, I'd scrap the whole thing. Yeah, there's no place in football. Football's a game of human error. We're trying to make it too clinical, too perfect. As we've seen tonight, the first penalty retaken, fair enough. I don't agree with it, but yeah, fair enough. The second one should have been retaken. Where do you stop? Because players are going to naturally run in after the ball, and you could be there all night just taking one bloody penalty because people refuse to not encroach.
But do you not feel, though, that if those rules were in place, that players might perhaps be a little bit more careful about doing that? I mean, if they're not going to get penalised for encroaching, where's the incentive not to encroach? You know, I guess that's the point.
Yeah, no, I just think it's not football for me. It's ruining the game. It's not assisting it. It's not making it better.
Yeah.
It's taking away all human nature.
Okay. Well, what about Pinky's suggestion, Rio? Sorry, I was just going to say, what do you think about Pinky's suggestion of perhaps adding a time limit to VAR decisions? So, you know, unless it's they've ascertained whether it should be, you know, ruled out or not within, say, 15, 20 seconds, that they have to go with the original decision. Do you think that might possibly work? Or do you think perhaps that might even lead to more errors because they're under pressure to make a decision?
Yeah, exactly. And you'll get some big decisions, some which are really close to call.
Yeah.
They're going to be overanalyzed and overanalyzed.
Okay.
Where do you call the time limit? If you go 15, 20 seconds and it's something still not clearly, blatantly obvious, it's just going up in another endless legal debate eventually, isn't it? You know, someone's going to come on the wrong end of a decision, throwing up in the courts. It isn't football. It's not making the game better for spectators. It's not making the game better for players. I'll tell you how bad it's got today. Even Jurgen Klopp come out and said, "I'm not keen on it." You know? And he's getting the benefit of the decisions every week.
Yeah, virtually. Exactly. I mean, I suppose the one thing we have to consider, really, wrap this section up fairly quickly, but you know, the reason we all wanted VAR introduced or a system like that is because teams of West Ham's stature just weren't getting the rub of the green in those games against the teams at the top end of the table. And you could argue that that's now, you know, we are now, but the decisions are being made wrongly for both teams.
I don't think we are, Graham.
I don't think we are either.
Look at Liverpool away. Yeah, Salah's dive. As the letter of the law goes, that simulation, that's a free kick to us. Yellow card for Salah. The idea of a time limit on it is it's a good idea in principle, but in fact, what we're finding now is that they're already not looking at stuff properly. I mean, you know, if they'd taken a few more minutes or a minute or two to look at the ball going out last week, for example, they might eventually have come along, hit on the right thing. So it's not being applied properly. It's people are making exactly the same mistakes on the telly as they are on the ground.
Yeah.
Look at the decisions we're looking at. I mean, you know, Salah penalty. I mean, yeah, really, and you know, VAR. If VAR has said yes, that's a penalty, then they've either not looked at it properly or they've just fallen for this. If there's contact, it's a penalty thing, which it's not the case. And you know, again, we get back to the fact that you know they're refereeing sort of, oh well, yeah, I'm guessing here, sort of thing. We're talking about encroachment, and you said, well, nobody's picking up on encroachment, so and eventually that'll end up being allowed because eventually nobody's actually at the moment picking it up. So you know, you'll see it more and more. It's the law gets changed, you know, not on paper, but it gets changed kind of by osmosis.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it gets changed in a way that will favour. I mean, the contact, there's a penalty. Who's benefited most out of that over the last 20 years?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that if Klopp's complaining about it, that he must have felt, aggrieved at some point in recent. But anyway, look, we're gonna cut that debate short there because we could go on for hours, and we probably will at some point about VAR, and no doubt we'll be talking about it pretty much every week between now until the end of the season, and possibly until it's phased out. But there you go. We did win tonight. West Ham have won. We saw Bielsa complain about set pieces, the way his team defended them. Let's talk about West Ham and the way we attack them. Pinky, obviously something we've worked on the training ground. David Moyes has obviously looked at those statistics, seen that Leeds concede 42% of their goals from set pieces. Thomas Souček, Angelo Ogbonna, bang, bang, 3 points. Brilliant stuff by Moyes. Credit to Moyes and the whole coaching team really tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And no team in the top flight has scored more goals from set pieces than ourselves. So I think that's 8 goals from set pieces this season. So we often ask, what do they do in training all week? Well, there's your answer. And again, I've referenced it before. Moyes is making the best of what he's got. He's not sitting there in the press every week whinging about players he doesn't have or talking about players he wish he had. He's actually saying, this is who I've got, and this is who I'm going to have this week because player X is out injured or player Y is out injured. And he's putting plans together and say, right, if we are really good here at a set piece, we might get a goal. And he's actually recruited some players that can influence that. Thomas Souček being the obvious case. So it's not an accident, it's a plan. And that's good management. He's saying, I've got limited resources, and I know if I can actually get some goals at set pieces, that could make the difference. Things like keeping Aaron Cresswell in the team, who was heavily criticised, a while back in terms of his delivery into the box week after week from deep positions, is an enormous part of our attacking potential. So again, the manager knows exactly what he's doing tonight. The fact that Cresswell wound me up all night tonight because he had the wrong studs in his boots, I actually put down to the coaching staff rather than the player. But Moyes is looking at what he's got and who is making the difference, and he's building the team around them sensibly and slowly but surely, and without spending all that much money. Moyes has put quite a decent team together for West Ham United, and he would have every right to be, phoning the chairman up on Monday and saying, let's talk about the January transfer kitty. And I just got a feeling that when he does phone the chairman, he probably has to go on a premium number so that the chairman makes money to receive the call. You can just picture that, can't you?
You can.
Moyes has to dial 033, whatever it is, to get through to the chairman. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from Moyes because he's making the best of what we have, and that's all you can ask the manager to do.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, really good points. Rio, do you agree with that from Pinky? I mean, huge credit tonight. Must as I said, must go to Moyes. 2-1 win, both goals coming from set pieces. Obviously, something they've worked hard on, at the training ground, and paying dividends for the labour and the time and effort put in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's hit the nail on the head, really. Souček is. You've got to think how bad we've been from set pieces for years and years and years. We've been really awful. Last 18 months, since Moyes took over again, we've been absolutely impeccable. Souček brings an extra aerial dynamic. We've got two or three centre backs who great headers of the ball. We've got in Jared Bowen, who delivers the ball well. Cresswell's delivery this season has been impeccable. You look at that first corner, the first goal, Souček can count himself rather lucky because that ball was in the right area. And if you look at it again, Declan Rice was in acres of space unmarked. If it had dropped to him, it was a certain goal. Ogbonna wasn't a million miles away. If it had gone to him, certain goal. It's a cleverly well-worked plan. And, we're exploiting the fruits of our labours. more play to it. It's about time West Ham have been this threatening. We've been waiting a long time to see this kind of dynamic in our team.
We've never really. I mean, I can't recall a time when we've been so threatening from set pieces. Pinky pointed out the statistic: 8 or 9 goals this season from set pieces already, and it's good. It's good to see.
Yeah,
I'm being told, by the way, from other sources that on the encroachment issue, unless the rebound was then played by the player, the refs generally deem it as immaterial. That's why it's not being pulled up. So
yeah, it's not. The laws of the game say if there's encroachment, you've got every right to have it retaken. You know, I mean, quite apart from anything else, you're a goalkeeper. You're 12 yards from the spot. You've got a player there, and you've got something in that eye line there.
Yeah, but I think this is the fundamental issue with VAR, is they're choosing which laws to apply to the letter.
Yeah,
Which offside, his toenail is played him onside there. So they're applying the offside rule to the absolute letter of the law. But a ball being kicked out on the touchline, it's clearly gone out. Someone has made the decision. Well, that really wasn't the determining factor in whether or not Manchester United scored a goal. And so what you've actually got are the referees, double guessing what happens next in a phase of play, rather than applying every law consistently and to the letter. So to me, if you're going to call it for offside every single time, you have to do it for every other rule every single time. My argument is, I don't think they should be calling it for offside every single time if it has taken them 3 or 4 minutes to actually determine that's the case.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to stop that. No, stop it. I can see you're itching to come back in on that one.
I was about to say, let's move on from that, actually. And,
well, we're going to move on. We're going to move on, and I'm going to come to you, actually, now.
He's only raised that point because he doesn't want us talking about his underwear again. Anyway.
Anyway, I'm going to move on, though. I'm going to move on. We're going to talk about, so we're going to come away from VAR. We've done the set pieces.
Set pieces.
Go on then, very quickly, come back to me, because there's a couple of other things I want to touch on before we go, and time's pushing on. So, great stuff. West Ham, 2 goal set pieces. Won us the game tonight.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'd be a little bit annoyed with, I mean, again, I think it may have been the earlier tone of the interview anyway had been set, but I think he looked a little bit annoyed at the fact that there seems to be this emphasis on the fact that we're scoring goals from set pieces, which implies that we're almost sort of, the Wimbledon side of a few years ago. Yeah, hoof it long into the box and see what happens. Which I think the fact that we're actually converting set pieces does actually cover up the fact that we're creating chances in open play as well, and we're not all about set pieces. I think. I mean, it's good that we're converting. Don't get me wrong, but I thought, we're a bit unlucky in front of goal a couple of times today. I mean, for now, he slightly slipped as he put that one. It came back off the post. Balbuena sort of hit on a goalkeeper who 5 minutes earlier seemed to have jelly in his hand. Suddenly, he developed some bones there. And there were a number of good chances.
Well, actually, on that note, if I can come in there, and I'll allow you to take this one up first of all. Sebastian Haller, I want to have a quick discussion about Haller, because it was a real Jekyll and Hyde performance from the big man tonight, wasn't it? First half, dreadful. Kept giving the ball away, kept making the wrong runs into the wrong areas. Second half, could have had a hat trick. 2 headers. Forced 2 good saves from 2 strong headers within a minute, and then the overhead kick, which was goal bound. So, talk to me about Haller. What's going on here? Is he a great player? Is he a rubbish player? Or is he
he's
usually the case somewhere in the middle?
Worst player they've ever seen. No,
that was Cardiff, wasn't it?
I'm not having that in any stretch of the imagination.
So what did you make of his performance tonight then, Gnome? Were you pleased with what he did?
When we play the ball up to him, when he's got his back to goal, we need it to stick. We need him to control it. We need him to lay it off and turn and go.
Yeah.
It happened as the game wore on. That actually happened, but far too often in the first half, his touch would let him down. I made the old joke about trapping a ball further than I could kick it. That happened. I mean, the penalty came from one such incident where we were caught going forward and it didn't stick. And next thing we know, we're talking VAR again. But don't worry, I won't bring it up. But the second half, there were a number of occasions when it was played to him and it stuck. He held off the guy behind him. He would look up and invariably, because he tend to play slightly left of centre when the ball was coming to him, he would look up and he would spray it out to the right-hand side. Usually Fornells or a number of times they were in space. Fornells or Bowen were in space on that side of things. And, that was the good thing. The good thing was that he kept plugging away. And after the first half where, it wasn't very good, it would have been the easiest thing in the world for him to, sort of just try and hide and all that. But he didn't. And he actually sort of grew into the game and got better.
Yeah.
The worrying thing for me is not Haller himself, but let's consider a situation where he didn't get better, he got worse in the second half. Where was the replacement? Mm-hmm. That's the worrying thing. So it's good that he improved. And, I don't want to see any West Ham player not doing well. And I was glad that he improved. And, that overhead kick, I'd have given anything for that to have gone in. And he had a header tipped over again. It was on target. It was causing problems.
Yep.
I want to see him playing well. I'd like to see him play like he did in the last 10 minutes in the rest of the game.
Okay.
So it was very much a curate's egg.
It's a good answer. Pinky, what did you make? I mean, Gnome's raised some points there, but what did you make of Haller's performance tonight? I sort of described it as a Jekyll and Hyde performance. Gnome says it was a bit of a curate's egg. What did you make of it tonight? Because he was getting, Rio was keeping an eye on the match thread on the KUMB Forum for us, as he does, and Haller was getting absolute pelters in the first half, wasn't he? But as we said, he could have feasibly had a hat trick in the second half. Should he have had a hat trick, or was it should he have taken those chances, or was it just a question of the keeper sort of was too good today? And how do you really assess his performance tonight? Because I'm struggling a bit, I've got to say.
Well, on the plus side, he was in a position to at least where he could or should have scored 3 or 4 times. So he was getting in the right parts of the pitch at the right time.
Yeah.
Personally, I think he should have had at least a couple of goals tonight. My concern with him is his lack of physicality, and almost to the point I've been sat here thinking about what would it take to make Seb Haller angry when he goes on the pitch at the start and he's got a bit of attitude about him. And I'm thinking, could we show him a video just before kickoff of his wife getting chatted up by 2 or 3 teammates, in nightclubs, and just say, you know why Issa Diop's not here tonight? Because he's taking your missus out for dinner while you're having to run around a freezing cold Ellen Road. That kind of thing, just to get him pumped up a little bit.
Just to elicit a reaction, yeah.
Yeah, we saw parts of it tonight. When people start getting stuck into him a bit, that's kind of like jostle back a touch. But it only lasts a brief, couple of seconds. Then he goes back to, it's almost as if he smoked the Camberwell carrot before kickoff. He's so laid back, and it's kind of like, show us your elbows. Give us a touch of the old Dennis Bergkamp routine. Yeah, have your elbows up and about, and have some of that, son. We don't see it from Seb Haller, and I'd just like him to be a bit more physical. And again, where I'm Moyes, I might be putting specific training ground routines together where he's got to get in and battle against some of the big boys and say, there you go, have a bruise.
Yeah.
Go home and show your wife you've had a bruise. Yeah, because I think there's something in there that is worth persevering with.
Yeah.
I really do. but he has to learn how to cope with the physicality of English football, because that's the job. That is the job.
And the fact is, of course, he's been here for 18 months now. So it makes you wonder if he hasn't managed to deal with it by now. Is it just something that he's not capable of doing?
Well, I mean, he's probably going to go on the team bus tonight, muttering, "Do none of my teammates find my wife attractive?" He's probably going to get upset that none of them are actually taking her out. I mean, that could be it. But the much missed Raz from the forum once gave a description of Matt Jarvis, who had a very similar kind of demeanour about him, which, because this is a family show, I can't actually repeat what it was. But perhaps when we finish, I'll let you guys know. But
Okay.
what does it take to get Seb Haller pumped up, physically involved in the game? Because the fact that he's actually getting in the right positions to score tells me he's got something about him. But we're at the stage now where he does need to actually start putting the ball in the net occasionally. And, if he'd been a £10 million striker, we would be upset. Club record signing, I think we've got a right to say we need more from him. And it's that simple.
Okay, good stuff. Rio, the guys have been saying there that, to his credit, he's getting in the right positions, he's creating the opportunities, but whether it's the finishing that's letting him down, or his attitude, or even perhaps his ability, something's not quite ticking at points. But this thing, Pinky's mentioned it there about the price tag. Do you think that if he was a £10 million player, that he'd be getting a lot more room for manoeuvre from the supporters? You think, it is because of the price tag that he's getting so much stick?
Yeah, I think that plays a huge part.
Okay.
I mean, some of the criticism I read today as I was looking at the forum while the game was on, there was criticising for a couple of the attempts at goal today. Now, in the first half, he got blocked by one of the Leeds defenders. The second half, before he had the header, again, he turned brilliantly, put a shot on target. There's two exceptional pieces of defending. If that happened from our point of view, we'd be all over our defenders going, that was magnificent, getting in the foot in the right time. But because Seb hasn't hit the target, he's still getting pelters. And that price tag is a huge millstone around his neck. And yeah, rightly so. We spent a lot of money on him. You expect better, but his efforts at goal today weren't the problem. The problem was in the first half, his touch was pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
After the second half, he really did grow into the game a lot more. It's some exceptional touches. Played the ball in nicely. He was let down on a couple of occasions by his teammates just checking their runs and not carrying on with them. It makes him look silly at times. Yes, he needs a bit of fire in his belly. Yes, he needs to sharpen up with his approach play and the way he holds the ball up. But today, he could have had an absolute stinger of a first half and still come away with a hat-trick.
Yeah.
There's a player there. There is a player there. But we're not playing. Again, someone put on the forum as well, remarking about how close his teammates are to him. And there was a huge distance at times. And when you've got 3 or 4 Leeds defenders swarming around you, you can't perform at your best. You can't always feed people in because you just haven't got the support there. He does a lot of things right.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously does a few things wrong at times, but he's getting, I think, undue criticism from our support.
Okay. I mean, let's forget the price tag for a minute. I mean, the point is that he is still only the team's 4th highest goal scorer in the Premier League anyway. I mean, he did score 4 goals in the Carabao Cup, but I think that was against Hull and Charlton possibly. So we'll exclude those goals for now. But, when it counts, I mean, he's got 2 Premier League goals. I think Bowen and Souček have got 3. Antonio's leading with 4. But, price tag aside, shouldn't we, be expecting a little bit more from him in the Premier League? I mean, I know he's not played every game, but we're 12 games in, and to only have 2 to his name is, probably a little bit under par, really, for a top-class striker.
Yeah, but he's only started 3 or 4 games, isn't it? 4 or
Well,
5
this is
games now.
yeah, that's the point, isn't it? Yeah, that's the
2 in
point.
5 isn't shabby in today's age. When's the last time we had a player play all season at that ratio?
Hmm.
That earn you like 10 games, 10 goals a season.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
I
have
think
10 goal a season strikers. No.
no, this is true. I guess the point I'm sort of there is that why isn't he forcing himself into David Moyes' plans as a first team player? Why is I mean Antonio's played very well. Let's you can't discount that. But Haller was brought in as the first choice striker. He was given the opportunity, and he's not made the most of it. And he's a bench player when everybody's fit now, and that just doesn't seem right for a player of that caliber.
Yeah, I think it's just the way Moyes set up. That he likes the physicality of Antonio. When Antonio's fit and firing, he's all action, isn't he? He occupies defenders.
And of course, Moyes didn't buy him. We've got to make that point.
Yeah, he can work a defence on his own, Antonio. Seb clearly needs someone closer to him for him to feed off and interact with. And we just don't play that system. He's the right player at the wrong club at the wrong time, you know? If he had someone playing alongside him week in, week out to develop a partnership with, as he did at Eintracht with Jovic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we bought him. We just bought him without buying his partner as well, or having someone that ilk to play alongside him to fit the system. He's a decent player. He's just not playing at the right club.
Okay. Well, let's hope it picks up. I mean, as we said, he had a much better second half this evening than first half, and it was unlucky. Could have grabbed a couple of goals, but just didn't really work out for him. But it's going to be one of those. I think it's going to be one of those discussions we're going to be having all season. But let's hope he can continue to. I mean, of course, he scored the best goal of the month last month. That I forget who it was against now. Sheffield United, wasn't it? The goal of the month from the edge of the box. So, we know he can do it. Even though that was, I think, as we remarked at the time, he's the first goal he's ever scored in his career from outside the penalty box. But anyway, Sebastian Haller, the debate will rage on and on and on. I kind of feel he's a bit like the Andy Impey of the team at the moment, the fall guy who, will always take a little bit of criticism, but we hope he comes good. We're rapidly coming to the end of tonight's stream. Thank God, I hear most of you cry out there.
And most of us,
most of us who are visibly fading as we approach the final hour of the day. One more subject, one more thing I'd like to wrap up with, and that is, of course, the subject we always talk about right at the end of every live stream, and that's our forthcoming opponent. And our forthcoming opponent, we've got to wait a few days now, but it's Crystal Palace, back in Stratford. Another great chance for the Hammers to push on and grab another vital 3 points, you'd think.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Not a great lover of that particular club, and it would cheer me up no end to see us prevail over them. So, you want a prediction? Or are you going to save that for Wednesday?
No, let's save that till next week. Of course, the games are coming thick and fast now, aren't they? But Palace's away record, Gnome, is a bit of a strange one this season. They've played 6 games away from Selhurst Park, and they've won 3 and lost 3. No draws away from home yet. But again, we've talked about Sebastian Haller being a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. You could say that about Palace and their away form this season.
Yeah. They're not the most adventurous of clubs generally, are they? Going forward, from what I've seen of them this year, it's it's not been it's not Hodgson's way, really, is it? I think. Excuse me, but we ought to have too much for them. But it's a case of let's make sure we turn up and again play our game and not let them play theirs. So they're an odd side. They're an odd side. They'll meander along, usually sort of getting away with stuff because there are usually 3 or 4 teams that are worse than them but they never really made much impact. They're kind of just there, and I mean that in terms of both their being sort of in the league and as a club in general. You know, it's they're kind of just there. It's and it's full of people, full of supporters doing things that they think football clubs do because that's what they've seen on the telly. You know,
it doesn't sound like you're a fan of the Palace to me.
No, I used to live in Croydon, so I just remember that the year they made the cup final, and suddenly people who hitherto had expressed no interest or even knowledge of the existence of association football suddenly sort of turned up. I was working in Croydon at the time, and you saw people walking around and sort of saying, "Oh, I hope I'm going to go for a ticket and see if I can get one." And there were people who probably wouldn't even know where Selhurst Park was. Were getting suddenly sort of, "I've got a ticket for the game." You just thought, "Yeah, do you want a map for Wembley?" You know?
Yeah. Yes, they are very much a team like that, aren't they? That kind of. And then again, you say that, talk about teams that make up the numbers. I suppose you could say West Ham have been a little bit like that in recent years, haven't
There's something about us, though, isn't there? I mean, you know,
well, you'd like to think so.
There's a bit of proper history. I mean, you know, we didn't make up our own nickname. We didn't sort of suddenly turn around and announce one year that we were going to be called the Eagles, which is what they did, when they were the Glaziers. And, you know, historically, what do West Ham play in? Claret and blue, or if you've got an old photograph, perhaps pink. But
or salmon.
Yeah, salmon, whatever it is. But, you know, Crystal Palace played in claret and blue when I was a kid.
I was going to say that. The colours changed, didn't they?
Then it was 70s. White, and then they sort of had this thing, we'll have this white with the thing going across there, and then there was one going down there. And it's,
was that not a claret and blue?
Yeah.
Was it red and blue or claret and blue?
Yeah, one year, well, they started up, they had claret shirts when I first started to go, when I was first starting to go to watch football. They had claret shirts, which kind of had a thin light blue stripe going down. And then they changed to a sort of pseudo Ajax thing, which was a white shirt with a claret and a blue stripe going down the middle. A little bit like
That's the one. That's the one I'm thinking of,
And then they went to white with a red and blue sash thing across there. To be fair, they have stuck to red and blue stripes all for a good few years now. I mean, but, you know, but it's
there you go.
Up. You know, no real traditions, only habits.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. As you can see, fellow Hammers, no fan at all of Crystal Palace or their plethora of different kits over the years. But Pinky, Crystal Palace, Chet Chiarti, James Tompkins, Wilfried Zaha, Roy Hodgson, 3 points, surely.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of Roy Hodgson, but when you've been managing football teams as long as he has, and he's always in work, he knows a thing or two about how not to lose. Mm-hmm. So he ain't going to be conceding 2 goals from set pieces next week. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whilst Bielsa gets all the plaudits for his nice, attractive, attacking football, Roy Hodgson's been managing for 45, 50 years or whatever, however long he's been doing it. Not for his attacking football, but the fact that actually he can organise a team. And I remember once when he was at Fulham, I think it was, they went a player down relatively early in the game at our place, and he made absolutely certain that we were not going to get an easy soft goal against them. So Hodgson will be well organised, his team will be well organised. I'd say it's the classic game where 1 goal will win it. Hopefully it'll be to us. But they've had a reasonable start this season, Palace, by their standards. So I think it'll be a much tougher game than what we've had this evening, that's for sure. And the trick, of course, is to keep Zaha out of the box because there is a touch of the Salah about him.
Yeah, they're another one of those teams, Pinky, aren't they? Sorry, that rely heavily on that one player. You know, like Villa with Grealish and even Manchester United to the degree with Bruno Fernandes, as we found out last week. So much emphasis is placed on Zaha.
Yeah, and you know, players that can make a difference. You know, I mean, and that's really what we're talking about, is the players that can make a difference. And you know, dare I say it, you know, Liverpool in the 70s used to depend an awful lot on Kenny Dalglish. You know, before that, Kevin Keegan. And if you've got a player that can make a difference, worth their weight in gold. Absolutely worth their weight in gold. So for Palace, it's Zaha. And, you know, somehow they ended up with Benteke. He scores twice last week, which is more than he did all of last season. You know, kind of thing. So, yeah, and it's a gamble because he's a player that Liverpool Football Club once paid a very big fee for.
Yeah.
So it isn't a case of one manager's just made a bad decision. You know, a manager of a very, very famous football club has said, we're going to have him as our main guy. And then they realize, oh, we're bought a dud and we move him on. Of course, they never did the same trick with us with Andy Carroll much, did they? But, you know, Hodgson, I don't like him, but he knows the job. And if I was a betting man, I'd be saying 1 goal in it next week, hopefully to us. But Palace will come for the point. Being no doubt about that, they're coming for the point. And we've spoke about Ben Rama earlier tonight, and maybe he's the player that can make a difference. Well, he'll have no better opportunity than next week. That's for sure.
Okay, excellent stuff. Rio, finally on Crystal Palace, our next Premier League fixture. Piggy's absolutely right. This is a game that I think a lot of West Ham supporters look at and think Crystal Palace, 3 easy points, simple, easy home game. Yet if you look at our record against the Eagles stroke Glaziers since promotion, since we came back into the Premier League, we've played them 8 times at home at the Bowling Ground and the Olympic Stadium, and we've only beaten them twice. We've also drawn 3 times and been beaten on 3 occasions. I think we lost last season, didn't we? I think it was 2-1. We went down last year. So, you know, it's one of those, I think, on paper, you know, there's a few teams like that. I think I'll probably put them in the same category as, say, Brighton, where you look at it on paper, you think, you know, when you look at the fixture list at the beginning of the season and you're looking for the teams where you're going to beat and pick up points, it's one of those, isn't it? It's like Brighton, yes, West Brom, yes, maybe Newcastle, Palace. Really turns out to be that way. Do you worry about this game?
Yeah, because the onus is on us to break them down and go for it. It's not like Man United, it's not like Man City, where we can sit back and hit on the counter attack. I mean, today we dominated the game. Really, we only 36% possession.
Yeah,
we're going to expect to have a lot more of the ball on Wednesday night. Go at them and break them down. They're going to just sit back and try and do as we did tonight, soak up the pressure and hit us on the counter. So that's the issue that I have, and that's my massive fear. That have we got the players there to do that? We know that Tommy Soucek, Declan are better at sitting deep, progressing with the ball, and obviously when we go forward from set pieces, they're a threat. So the onus is on Ben Rama if he plays. The onus is on Fornells to try and work their magic and create chances. So yeah, that's why I think we're going to struggle a little bit, possibly. Okay. Could be like a bit like after Lord Mayor show kind of scenario. Yeah. I'd also like to point out, I detest Palace probably more than Gnome does.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the reasons he actually stated. I mean, they're a fake club, aren't they? They change their persona at will. They change their nickname. Whoa. With them and bloody Brighton, because our nicknames are Seagulls, your nickname's Eagles. Oh, that's it. Let's have a rivalry. You know? Sort of. And it's the worst ground in London as well. Right? It's not named a Terry Waite stand for no reason. It is awful. Yeah, it is rank. It is the worst ground in London.
And just on that
the only good thing about it is that the overground now gets you out of that hellhole quicker than you used to be able to. Only good thing about the place. Burn it to the ground.
Pinky, go on, you've got to come in there quickly.
Yeah, just on the safety down there.
Yeah.
I kicked up a bit of a fuss with Crystal Palace when we played down there a couple of seasons back. I actually left the game early because I felt unsafe in the stand, and it's the reply I had from Palace and from the council, who of course would be responsible for the issue of the safety certificate, were masterpieces in not answering the specific allegations I was making. And funnily enough, 3 days after I'd sent them the letter, Croydon Council put up a brand new safety certificate on their website, Sellers Park, which of course, the one that had been up before then had expired some time beforehand, like a year and a half previously. And I would contend at the time we played them that season, they did not have a valid safety certificate in place. So from a regulatory
And when was this?
This was, I think, two seasons ago. I've got the paperwork lying around. We had a thread in it on KUMB, and there was a clear gap where, and if you read the correspondence from them, they were very careful not to answer the specific question I asked about, was there a valid safety certificate on the date of the game? And just hilariously, 3 days later, a new safety certificate appears. And I wrote to Cressida Dick, the chairman of Palace and the boss of the council and all the rest of it, and said, between you three, you're responsible for the safety of supporters in that stand. And there's a whole range of protocols they're supposed to go to in that stand. Yeah. And there's things like when you go through the gates at Sellers Park, they've got like catering facilities there as you go through. There's a very specific rate at which you have to be able to get through turnstiles of football grounds to be, part of to count as being safe. And you can't do it there because of the way the concourse and that T area is configured. And that's one of many problems I've got there. And it's a dodgy ground, being no doubt about it. Yes. And had I the time, I'd have pursued it a bit stronger. Let's put it that way. But if you think Gnome hates Palace, you think Rio hates Palace, I really hate Palace. I really do. It's a pain in the arse to get to. It's a crap stand that we're always put in. Yeah, they're pathetic supporters with all their fake ultra nonsense and all the rest of it. What was it? The team of the '80s they were going to be? Was it with Terry Venables?
Terry Venables was there.
Yeah. Patsy Eagle and all.
Yeah, undoubtedly the worst club in London, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And Tottenham.
I'm not too against Tottenham. I've got to be honest with you. I mean,
here we go.
Tottenham got daft for supporters.
I'm not. Seriously, when we were all children, there wasn't this great thing with West Ham and Tottenham, but there really wasn't. It's a Sky era thing. Yeah.
So sum up this evening. Graham's got a Leeds shirt. Pinky wears women's underwear and has a secret liking for Tottenham. We're all getting the confessions out tonight, aren't we?
Had. I was about 7 at the time. Come on. It was a long time ago. Anyway, so look, there you go. Crystal Palace, crap football team, crap health and safety policy. You heard it here first. That's it. I could go on. I could ask some more questions, but look, time's pushing on. Pinky's yawning. Gnome's sinking into his sofa, and I think Rio's actually asleep there. But I'm not sure.
At least I've got a sofa.
All right. Yeah. Well, don't start that one. Tuesday, by the way, for the record, Tuesday. So we're told. But I shall update you of Sofagate on our next broadcast next week. Crystal Palace, West Ham, Crystal Palace next. Until then, of course, it has ended tonight at Ellen Road. Leeds United 1, West Ham United 2. The Hammers powering back into the top 5 of the Premier League. All right, it might only be for a few hours, but hey, let's enjoy it while we can. And we probably deserve it after last season and the hellish season we had and everything we went through. My thanks tonight for providing the commentary and keeping you all amused. Go to Rio, to the absent-minded Pink Palermo, and also to Gnome. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for your excellent company and opinions. Also to everybody who's joined us on the live stream throughout the evening. Quite busy out there tonight. Lots of comments. As I always say, we love to read your comments and feed off those. So thank you for keeping us company and keeping us busy. As I said, West Ham up to 5th in the table. It's another away win. It's a quite remarkable and extraordinary season so far. Crystal Palace next. Let's have another 3 points. Come on, you Irons.